Just a reminder, Christmas is soon, and if you want to get your parents something, then consider getting them these cubing shirts. Everything's 20% off till the end of December, but get it soon or it may take a while to ship. So to get a world record or just to beat your personal best, you of course have to get lucky. And this is especially true for shorter events like 3x3. So recently the world record was broken with 3.47 seconds, and if you haven't seen it, then I made a video covering the drama around that solve. But I looked more into the solve and also into past world records, and I learned something that I didn't realize before. So I'll get to that. So first, on the topic of easy scrambles, for something like 2x2 or anything where you can see the whole solution in inspection, that's not really what I'm talking about today, because those ones have sort of, like, you'll see what I mean, they're different. So what makes a scramble easy on 3x3 is that you can see further into the solve than usual, and you can't see all the way to the end. But for a beginner, an easy scramble would be like if you could see the whole cross-string inspection, and for someone more advanced, maybe you could see first F12 pair and so on. So easy scrambles are nice, and they're also rare. So when you see one, you know that this is an opportunity for you to do something great with it, whether or not it's a world record, even if it's just at home, but you still feel like there's pressure on this solve, and that can change the way you do the solve. So how can you handle that pressure? Well, to answer that, first we need to specifically talk about what that pressure does to you. So imagine you had just planned the cross and 2 F12 pairs, when normally you just plan the cross. So obviously this is a super easy scramble, and it could be your PB here. You start, you do what you planned to do, which was the 2 F12 pairs, and then you pause and you can't see anything. I'm sure this sort of situation sounds familiar to you guys, because it's familiar to me too. Obviously, there's an easy scramble and there's more pressure than usual, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So that pause might have just been an effect of the pressure getting to you, but there could be another reason why you're making it harder for yourself in these situations. Most likely, if you end up having a big pause, it's for the same reason as usual. You're turning faster than you should be. No pressure, the pressure's all gone. It's an average scramble, and in any normal scramble, any normal situation, you would just solve how you normally do. And the reason you solve a certain way is because that is the way that produces the best results for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be solving it that way. And one of the factors in how you usually solve is your turn speed. And if you change your turn speed, even if you don't realize it, if you're turning a little too fast in solves that you really, really want to be good, then that just makes it worse, because it's not what you would ideally be doing. So in competition, especially in my earlier days of competitions when I wasn't good at handling the pressure at all, I felt like some days I would just get all trash solves, except for like 1 or 2 that were really, really good. So I find this is true for a lot of people in competition. And so if you go look at my competition results, back when I averaged like 12, my only sub 10 solve was 8. Now, if you think about it, that actually makes sense, because if I'm turning faster than usual, obviously my average solve becomes worse than usual, because that's not how I normally solve. But my best solves also end up being better than usual, because those are just the solves that look ahead happen to be easy. And since I already have a boosted turn speed on that solve, and look ahead was super easy, then I'm able to keep up. And so that ends up giving me a really, really good solve, but that's only one out of many. And that 1 8-second solve that I got a long time ago, I remember it was full step. And so I feel like that's what usually happens. It's not like when you get lucky that this happens, it's when you just get a really nice look ahead solve. And because there's nothing there's no like skip steps, it made me think that I was doing something right. But it was only right for that one scramble. For every other scramble, it just made me worse. So this whole idea about turn speed, let's look at the past world records and see if this is still true. World records, of course, by definition, are abnormal. They're statistical outliers. So you'd expect any statistic about them to be better than usual. So here are the times of the last 5 world records. As you can see from their move counts, they're really lucky. The average CFOT move count is about 55, and the average of these is 36. Okay, obviously their move counts are stupidly low. Moving on. Okay, now look at the turn speed for each of these world records. So this is in turns per second, and this is what we're interested in. As you can see, they actually vary by a lot, even though the times are so similar. But the 2 fastest turn speeds, going at 9 turns per second, were done by, you guessed it, Felix Zemdegs. The 2 slowest ones were the ones from the unexpected world record holders, which were Steve Cho and Yu Sheng-tu. So each of their turn speeds roughly correlated with how good the solver was at the time. So I wanted to look at what they averaged at the time and see if I could find any data about that. So to represent each person's average, I went with their best average in competition. And the reason I went with best average in competition is because most people don't have like an amazing average of 5 in competition. It tends to more be just like a normal set of scrambles, but you had a good day on those scrambles. So for me, I know that on any set of scrambles, I can beat my competition average, but I have to be having a good day and deal with the pressure well. So typically the scrambles are like close to average, maybe a little bit better than average on your competition best average. So that's why I thought it was okay to go with that. So using each person's official average and assuming 55 turns per solve, then we can find out their expected turns per second. So here are the results. Turn speed on the world record and expected turn speed. So maybe you can let me know what you think about this, but what I take away from this is that on lucky scrambles, you will do your best if you just try to turn at the exact same speed that you normally do. And that makes sense, because if you could somehow look at an easy scramble and just decide, I'm going to turn faster now and still look ahead, then that's unrealistic, because if you could do that on an easy scramble, why not just do it for every single solve? So it would be cool to think that world records are just the result of performing better than usual. But if you look at the data, it doesn't really support that. So of course there is better performance than usual. They are really good solves, but the amount that how well you perform is, like how much that matters, is actually to a lot smaller extent than we expect. It's actually just like how well you normally do plus an easy scramble. And if you just take it for what it is, it sounds a bit depressing, like it's all about luck. But is it really? So the record was just broken with 3.47 with 27 moves. And looking at the data we had earlier, Felix has the fastest expected TPS of 9.48. So using this number, Felix could get a world record if the solve was 32 moves. 32 moves is not likely, but it's far more likely than 27 moves. And so if you do the same math, for me to get a world record, I would need a solve that's 21 moves. 21 moves is possible? It's not possible. Here's a formula. The world record used to be 4.22, and a 27 move solution showed up that broke that record. So what if you or me or someone else had gotten that scramble in competition? If you had been clever enough to come up with the same solution, would you have broken the world record? Well, plugging in the numbers into this formula, you have to have an official average of 8.59 or better to be likely to break that world record. 330 people were capable of that. So right now the record's 3.47, and we don't know how lucky the next record will be. So using this math, you can try other numbers if you want, but I'm gonna see what happens if we gave everyone a 29 move solution, which is still ridiculous, and see how many people are actually expected to break the world record on that scramble. So by doing the math, you actually need to have a 6.58 or better average to be expected to break that world record, and turns out that's only 9 people in the whole world. Maybe 8, because Qian uses brew, and the math has to be done differently. So obviously luck is a factor, we already knew that. But if you go to enough competitions and do enough solves, you'll eventually get pretty lucky. And we've shown that even if you get crazy lucky, if you're not good enough, it won't be a world record. So instead of talking about how lucky the scramble was and how ridiculous it was, if you got that scramble in competition, by the time that happens, will you be good enough to break the world record?